I don't have any shame in like getting all dirty to see what a problem is. But at the same time, I can deal with spreadsheets and analytical, completely shameless when it comes to work. And sometimes it's hard to find people that are just, I'll do whatever it takes to fix a problem. And most people won't. They'll sort of give up easily or make excuses. And it's been hard to find somebody who can kind of fill that role. So.
Welcome to the Wild West Real Estate Podcast. And now, here's your host, Mark Henteman.
Today's guest is a single and multifamily investor now doing office and retail. He's founder of Rovira Realty and RG Capital. I'd like to welcome Carlos Rovira.
What's up, Mark? How are you?
Good, good. How about yourself?
I'm good, man. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Yeah, so let's jump right in. Give a little background. I know you're in Miami. Oh, I forgot to, I'll cover it when we get there, but you're in Miami. How did you get started?
Yeah, okay. So I started off, I've been living here in Miami my whole life. Started off actually working in the tech industry. I used to be a software engineer and I worked at a company called Yahoo, an old internet company in Miami.
I saw that. My wife worked at Yahoo for maybe like 6 years or so. Maybe not that long. She worked with Terry Semmel. Do you remember he took over maybe in mid 2000s?
That might have been before. Oh, Terry. Yeah. And I was there already after that.
Okay.
Which was the CEO after that, which was Jerry Yang, the guy who founded the company. And then since, I mean, we can get into it, but there were like 6 different CEOs in the 9 years that I was working at that company. Very unstable times, very, very difficult times, and very eye-opening at the same time, because I realized that, there really is no such thing as stability when it comes to being an employee of another company.
Okay, sure.
So, I worked there for about 9 years, and quickly after I started working there, probably about 6 months in, I started working there in 2008, right out of college. And there were layoffs, right? So 2008, the world ends, the economy crashes, the recession, the Great Recession begins, and the company, obviously goes through restructuring and does a layoff, and almost half of the office, or more than half of the office that was in Miami got fired, and I was one of the few left behind, probably because I was just the lowest paid employee at the time. I had just started working there, and it was cheap to keep me around, and I was was a good employee. I worked pretty hard, but that led me to really realize that, wow, there's no, going to college and getting a degree and getting a steady job really isn't so steady, right?
Yeah, there's no sure thing.
Yeah, exactly. Seeing these people that have been working at Yahoo for 15 years just get fired in one day was pretty traumatic. So that led to me, reading a lot and doing some soul searching. And I discovered real estate and the power of buying rental properties, right? And having this passive income that could, that would exist, or it would happen, it would occur and come in every month, whether you work or not.
Yeah, could I inject my little validation of what you just said is my wife was working for Yahoo probably around 2008. Yeah, right around there. And yeah, they were having massive, I remember always hearing every night, like when she came home, about the chaos and restructuring that they were doing. And at the same time, I was a writer and we had gone on strike. That was during the writers' strike back then. And we had twins, we had preemie twins on the way. And it was just, exactly what you're saying. There was no certainty anywhere.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So proceed. Yes. Yeah. So what happened on your end?
So, yeah, I mean, I got interested in real estate, and that led to me buying a duplex. Bought a duplex. That was the first property we bought. My wife and I we were engaged and we were getting married. And of course, newlyweds, they buy houses. Yep. I had this crazy idea to buy a duplex instead of a house and live at one side and rent out the other. It was met with quite a bit of resistance by everyone around me, just because it's 2009, when anybody who's in real estate is a loser and has failed and is going into bankruptcy. So it was, the media perception and the perception of real estate in 2009 was it's a bad investment, right?
It was a mess. It was a disaster, right? Yeah. Especially in Florida.
Yeah, in Florida, and like your market, LA, all kind of the bigger markets, the coastal markets always tend to be affected by ebbs and flows in the market. So it was huge. But I powered through. I stuck to my guns. I convinced my fiance at the time, who was now my wife, that it was the right choice. We bought a duplex in a real nice neighborhood here in Miami. We lived in one side, rented out the other. Basically lived for free. The person next door paid for my mortgage.
How did you have the foresight to get into a duplex? What prompted that?
Just a lot of reading. I mean, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I read all all the books that lead.
Of course,
that
okay,
follow
sure.
after Rich Dad. That whole series, and then that opens up a rabbit hole of just entrepreneurship books that really open up your eyes. I mean, real estate is an incredible wealth building tool, and it makes so much sense. And it's very forgiving of anybody who holds on to it in the long term, right? Like if you buy a really bad stock today and it tanks, that's it. But if you overpay for real estate today, but you hold it for 30 years, you're still gonna make money.
Yep.
So yeah, that just led to buying more duplexes and more duplexes. Before we knew, we had a little portfolio of duplexes. I was still working at Yahoo. 17 layoff rounds later, I was still employed by them, still with this fear that I was going to lose my job at any minute. Not sure much longer your wife worked there, but I was there from 2008 to 2016. So it was like 8 or 9 years.
Okay. Yeah. My wife, she quit when our twins were born. We had, twins, and she was kind of overwhelmed.
So that must have been around, you mentioned 08 or 9. So
yeah, it was probably like 2011, 10 or 11 is when she really quit.
So we had some overlap. She had the blessing of being able to quit and not getting those people who used to work for Yahoo were laid off.
Is that right? Yeah. Right? Yeah. I just remember the drama. It seemed like internally all the drama that was going on over there, and I was glad not to be part of it.
Just horrible. I feel like they had full teams dedicated to like deciding how to reorganize the company, right? Like there were people who were paid for the purposes of figuring out how to reorganize the company and who to lay off or what teams to move. Like I felt like there was a quote unquote reorg every like few months. Like I went through like 6 different bosses when I was there, and I had basically a job. Yeah.
It was crazy. Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, it's a really good way. It was a learning experience because I learned how to not run a company, how to, I learned what it was like to be at a company that was not doing well, and a lot of lessons on how not to run things, which was good. But throughout the whole period that I was working there, I was making good money. My wife was also working a W-2 job, and we were saving a lot because we had this income from this duplex. Our main expense, which is housing, we didn't have that expense, right?
It was covered. Amazing.
Yeah, the person next door was paying for it. And that allowed us to really save and kind of accelerate our saving rate. And we've always been very frugal. We don't really spend a lot of money. We're not very materialistic people. So we've been very blessed with being able to save mon20 quickly. And we use that we leverage that to buy more properties.
That's the perfect plan.
Perfect plan. So I think it's like let's say 2014, 15, around there, we had, I think it was like 4 duplexes that we owned. And by then we were pretty much fully out of the kind of recession era.
Sure. Yeah.
Prices had bounced back. It became really, really difficult to find new deals, right? I couldn't buy a duplex that would cash flow, right? Because we're very into cash flow. We bought in 2009 when the people who were buying for appreciation only got burned. So when we got started, it was cash flow, and we kind of stayed true to that model.
Yep.
And 13, 14, 15, around there, it just became almost impossible in Miami. The prices had shot up, values were ridiculous, and there was no way to buy a duplex that could cash flow if you wanted.
Yeah. And, just to insert this, so you were in Florida for 2008, and I was farther away, but, for a lot of listeners who didn't experience that or don't remember that was like the build up to 2008, and then the collapse of Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns, and just the mess of sorting all that out. That was kind of crazy times back then. And I don't know if you experienced, but even in California out here, I know Florida was kind of in the middle of it. But yeah, we had like whole neighborhoods of like empty houses. Do you remember all that?
Yeah, it was apocalyptic. I mean,
It was apocalyptic.
there were so many foreclosures and there was no liquidity. So like nobody could buy them, right?
Yeah,
Like
everybody froze up. All the banks froze up.
no bank was lending. So it was like this weird stalemate situation, but like not good. Loads of vacant houses and things were really cheap, man. Like if you had
Yeah.
cash back then,
And
you were,
yeah, when there's blood in the streets, there's opportunity. And
yeah.
yeah, of course, a lot of people started to realize that around, around 10, 11, 2012. And then in my experience, by like 13, 14, it became extremely competitive, as you mentioned.
Totally. So we found ourselves in a weird spot because we couldn't buy anything new and we were saving a lot of money because you have 4 duplexes, you have all this income that you're not using and that you're trying to snowball that into more
Put that to
portfolio.
work.
So it was a frustrating time. We couldn't find anything. It was tough. So I got turned on to this concept of turnkey houses where you could buy these cheap houses in the Midwest and somebody else manages them and somebody else fixes them up.
Sure.
And we kind of got into that game for a while. And I discovered the market, Kansas City, Missouri, and there was a lot of turnkey people in that market. So I started buying some turnkey houses just to kind of test the water a little bit on new markets because I had never purchased outside of Miami, where I wasn't the one managing and I wasn't the one controlling the.
So a new market and a new asset class, like something that was turnkey.
Yeah. And still buying. So basically, what these turnkey guys do is they buy a distressed house, they fix it up, they put a tenant, and then they sell it to a guy like you and me who are in like a coastal market where things are expensive. And it's essentially turnkey. Like they do everything. You just put up the cash and they do everything.
Right.
It works well when there's a solid deal flow because their business model relies on them constantly selling houses to keep it going. Their property management is not really a profitable enterprise. It's really just there to continue having you buy properties. And what happened was that I was buying turnkey houses from one guy, and I think I had like maybe 16 houses by the time it was 2020 and COVID hit. And when COVID hit, the supply dropped drastically because nobody was selling and nobody was doing anything, right? Everybody was at home. And the turnkey business kind of dried up, right? It was hard for them to find deals.
Okay.
And when the deals dried up, their revenue dried up. And when their revenue dried up, the property management quality really started to go down.
Oh,
so I started noticing that my existing portfolio was performance was really going down, right? And it was because the property manager just they weren't trying. They were short staffed. They weren't addressing issues. And
what were the signs? What were the signs that it was going downhill? Was it vacancy? Was it, just neglected repairs?
Yeah, but all of the above. Neglected repairs. They would put in really bad quality tenants that then when they would leave abruptly.
Oh, sure.
So then you'd have high vacancy costs, high cost of turning units. And when you're buying single family homes, the margin is really thin. So you have to really control the repair cost and the vacancy. You got to keep that low. Vacancy will blow your cash flow for a year,
Absolutely.
So when it became evident that property manager was not going to perform, and at that moment, as like a defensive measure, I basically assumed management of this portfolio from afar.
From afar, you were in Miami and they were in Kansas.
I'm in Miami during a pandemic where I can't travel, right? I can't go anywhere, and I'm basically on my back, in my backyard with my cell phone, trying to clean up a mess that was created by a property manager. And I realized over the course of like 2, 3, maybe 4 months, as I like addressed all of the maintenance issues, as I found somebody to help me fill the vacancies, as I stabilized the portfolio, I realized I was very good at property management.
Yeah,
it's a very problem solving oriented business. All you're doing is solving problems. And as an engineer, working in the tech industry, all I did was solve problems all day. So my mindset, or my kind of analytical brain of being able to solve problems, translated very well into the property management.
Oh, cool. I don't think I've ever had that observation stated, but it's interesting. Yeah. Engineer mindset.
Yeah.
Translating from tech to management. What's that?
fixing things, right? Like, and as an engineer, all you do is fix things and
Right.
make it work. And that's what was needed in my portfolio, right? Was it to be fixed and optimized.
Yes.
So I accidentally fell into the property management business. I realized I was good at it. And then before I knew it, people that I knew were asking me to manage their properties. So I started taking on third party owners as clients to kind of bring in a little bit of extra revenue and, help finance and stay and have my property management company, become a profitable business.
Sure.
So,
Kind of organically
right.
sprung out of the situation you were in. Did you lose a little bit of faith in the single family turnkey model as an investment,
Yes, for
or
sure.
you still have
I
faith in it?
haven't purchased any more turnkey houses since then. Just when you're in an up market, like when values are high, it's hard for turnkey people to operate, right? Because there's not that many distressed properties anymore, right?
Yeah.
When we're in low supply situations, there's a very low supply of distressed properties or owners that are willing to sell their properties at a discount enough for these turnkey guys to make money, right? Because anybody can
Okay.
just put their property on the market and sell it for top dollar nowadays, at least last year.
Yeah. Interesting.
So yeah, I mean, I didn't buy for a while. It was all throughout 2020. I didn't buy any new properties. It was all just kind of help trying to stabilize the existing portfolio. And then I was introduced to my partner Alfredo at the end of 2020. Came through a mutual friend of mine who I had told knew that I was active in the Kansas City market. And Alfredo had moved to Kansas City. He's a Miami guy who had moved to Kansas City because his wife was doing her PhD over there and he had to move. And he was working at the university in a fundraising role. He was raising money for the University of Missouri. And he introduced me to him. We kind of hit it off. We started talking. He was really into real estate. He had done his PhD dissertation on real estate development. And he was kind of trying to break through into the real estate business over there. And we put our heads together. I told him, look, man, you can raise money, right? Like you have kind of this ability and you've developed this kind of Rolodex of people in Kansas City, of high net worth people that could potentially fuel some of our deals. I know how to buy and manage, and I know how to underwrite deals. Let's put our heads together and buy some bigger things, some bigger assets. So we got together in early 2021, and as of today, we own 3 commercial properties, 2 office buildings, and are kind of like this retail / office, all in Kansas City. And we've been doing that. We've been trying to stabilize them. We bought one of the office buildings. Imagine in the middle of COVID, you're buying an office building, right? People are working from home.
Right.
Buying office buildings. We bought one that was completely vacant. It was basically overrun by crackheads.
So you were finding highly distressed office?
Distressed. Yeah,
okay.
Super distressed. And what is more distressed during a pandemic than office?
Office, right?
Nobody was buying office. Banks wouldn't lend. It was difficult to get those deals done. And when you would approach somebody and say, I'm buying an office building, they'd be like, oh, but who's working out of an office now? That was the perception of that asset class.
For investors. Is that what you're? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What our reasoning was, people are going to end up going back to work, and
sooner or later. Yeah.
Sooner or later. And
you want to buy at the worst time.
When everybody's running away from something, that is when you run towards it, because that's when there's the most potential to add value. And our reasoning was, look, these are small office spaces. They're older buildings. The suite sizes, like the office sizes, are very small. They're, sub 2,000 square feet. They're not huge offices. So small businesses like lawyers and CPAs and these types of professionals that need office space are going to end up going back and renting these smaller spaces. So if we can buy these buildings that have smaller spaces versus these huge footprints where you need to, rent the whole floor to one company, we can very easily kind of hedge ourselves and get a little bit of economies of scale, and kind of treat it like a multifamily a little bit, in a way where you have multiple units within one office, and then just rent out the office suites on shorter term leases to some small businesses. And that's what we've done. We've only purchased buildings that have smaller suites and executive type suites and offices, versus a skyscraper where you have to rent half of it to one big company.
Yeah. Could you, I've never gone down this road with a guest on office, but there are different categories of office, right? As you're describing just now, there's there's like the lawyer, the independent lawyer who's got like a single tenant office space, like a little house or something converted. And then there's also, like you say, the massive office buildings that get leased by some major national tenant.
Totally.
Is
Yeah.
that right? I don't
There's
know.
different classes of office buildings. Ours are more B, kind of C class. They're the older buildings, 1970s ugly concrete block buildings that are very sturdy, very well built. And those are the ones that were cheaper, right? Because they're
Sure.
not new.
Yep.
And potentially more distressed, right? I mean, if this building has been owned by the same owner, for 20, 30 years, and they've had to go through pandemic life and high vacancies, they're probably in distress. And that's probably where the deals are. And it was true. I mean, we bought one building that was completely vacant, not completely vacant. Had been overrun by, homeless people and crackheads and all sorts of interesting characters. We bought it for really, 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 really cheap. I mean, all cash for almost nothing. That was like $12 a foot or something like that. And
Wow.
vacated the whole thing. Yeah. Vacated the whole thing and renovated it. I mean, the building was in good condition. It just needed cosmetics, right? Like it needed new floors, it needed paint, carpet. We put a brand new AC unit into it, which, the AC was like 100 years old. And now we've been renting it out. I mean, it wasn't that difficult.
Cool.
We got in for really cheap. Yeah, we got in for really cheap, right? So
I bet
we're able to offer low rents. No, go ahead. Sorry.
It sounds like the seller must have been distressed, but yeah, it from your perspective as somebody in property management, you saw it as something manageable, like fixable. And it's probably the owner, the seller of it was like, oh my God, like I got to get out of here.
Yeah. The seller was a motel operator. So all of their other buildings were motels. So this one office building was kind of like an outlier in their portfolio, and it had been neglected. And imagine during a pandemic. And they were also not local. They were based out of St. Louis, Missouri. So they weren't there to really own the building. So yeah, they let it go, and they were basically desperate to get rid of it. I mean, it was probably sucking money from them, not producing, and they were happy to get rid of it. And we came in there with our problem solving mindset, and we bought it for cheap. We fixed it up for cheap. I mean, we bought it for $350,000. It's a 24,000 square foot building. I mean, I can't even buy a house in Miami for less than $1 million. And I bought an office building for $350,000. So that was amazing. Yeah. We put another 350 into it. So we're in for about 700 to fix it up. And we just did paint, carpet, floors, new AC, redid the bathrooms, and that's it. I mean, it didn't need that much more. It was just cosmetics. And little by little, we've been leasing it up. This past week was really good. I think we have it up to like 40% occupancy from zero. So when we've been leasing since I think May. We started leasing in May, and now we're in August. So in 3-4 months, we've gotten to 40% occupancy, which is pretty damn good. So,
and you're doing all of this remotely, correct?
Well, yes. So my half and half. Alfredo lives in Kansas City. He's my partner.
Oh, right. Of course.
So he oversees a lot of the projects. And then we have 2 employees in market that are kind of our on-site building managers, and then they manage a lot. My wife and I, we run the property management business from afar. So we're here in Miami, so we deal with all of kind of the back office stuff. So the accounting, all the maintenance, dealing with like processing maintenance issues and paying bills and doing that sort of stuff. And then we have our on-site managers that are there to like help the tenants move in and, deal with whatever problems.
How often would you say you travel to the site?
Not often enough. I wish I could go more. I'll probably go next week or in 2 weeks. I was just there in June, which was 2 months ago. I think I'm averaging like once every 2 to 3 months.
Okay. So like 4 to 6 times a year.
Yeah. Thankfully I have Alfredo who's there, and he's the boots on the ground. If I didn't have him, I'd probably be there a lot more often, and we wouldn't have been able to work as quickly as we have. Yeah.
It seems like it would have been a big impediment if you wanted to live in Miami and own and operate these properties afar, if you didn't have your key partner.
Yeah, it's difficult. And sometimes for me, since I'm such a hands-on like problem solver, I feel bad when I'm not there, that I am not there. I get a little bit of FOMO, like when there's stuff going on. I wish I could just physically be there to help out, but I do what I can from afar.
So does that take you to today? Like you're working on that clearly presently, and have you expanded your office portfolio, or have you dabbled in other asset classes?
Right now, it's just the 2 office buildings, and then we have the retail building, which is kind of like office too. It has office on the second floor and then retail on the
Okay.
first floor. We want to do more of those deals. We're actively looking. That's kind of where I see a lot of potential in building more wealth because of the value add component.
Sure. All in Kansas, correct?
All in Kansas City.
City.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kansas
For
City.
now, until it becomes impossible, and then we'll find another market. But,
Right.
we're already established there. So, it's less barrier to entry to buy new deals. What's kind of holding us up lately is just interest rates going up. It's kind of hard to find deals that make sense now because we're kind of like in this weird situation where
Yeah.
sellers don't want to come down in price, but buyers can't really buy because the debt is so
Standoff. Yeah, we're at a
Yeah.
standoff.
Standoff. Totally. I don't know how much longer it's going to last, but we've canceled like 3 deals in the past, like 3-4 months because of that. Just because all of a sudden the rates changed and the deal that made sense last week.
Right. Right. Yeah, better to do that now than to be stuck with it and be
Yeah.
bemoaning a mistake.
Bemoaning a mistake. Totally. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at now. Hopefully things will let up in a little bit. I think there's probably opportunities to get some like seller financed deals now, since it's hard to get real bank
Sure.
financing. But
Sure.
we'll see what happens, see how this pans out. But we're actively looking, actively making offers always.
Okay. And has obviously the market has evolved since COVID, and maybe some of those distressed deals are no longer. Are you finding that they're harder to find nowadays? And then obviously
Totally.
the interest rate as another aspect to that makes it harder as well.
Yeah, for sure. There's office buildings are no longer distressed, or at least there's not that many. I think we pretty much bought all of them in Kansas City that were distressed. There's not that many, but yeah, the winds have definitely changed. The winds have definitely changed, and then there's a lot of liquidity, or at least there was in the system, buying up deals, and rates having gone up has definitely affected that. So we'll see.
Sure.
We'll see what happens.
Sure. All right. So Kansas will be your market. And it seems like almost the poster child of like that strategy. Like Kansas is the great market for cash flow buying in the Midwest.
Yeah, I mean, the
Where else?
Midwest
Memphis,
has
maybe?
always been less reactive to like market swings.
Fluctuations. Sure.
Exactly. So it's steadier, right? You don't see huge increases in values. You don't see huge drops in values. It kind of stays steady. The COVID and the pandemic lack of supply situation that we've dealt with in the past year and a half has definitely made prices go up a lot in Kansas City, but things are still affordable. And for cash flow, I think you'll never go wrong if you find like a good Midwest market and really focus on it. Kansas City's not the only one. And, if you just stay steady on that strategy, on the cash flow strategy, I think the Midwest is a great place to be. And it's easy to do business there. People are nice. There's less pirates. Miami, I get screwed over and backstabbed by everybody. And everybody says what they're going to do. Everybody does what they say they're going to do. And they're,
in the Midwest. Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally. I'm a Midwesterner. That's cool. And it sounds like Kansas City has attracted a lot of attention. It's as being a very, strong market from that, for that strategy. Exactly.
Yeah, very. And there's population growth, which is interesting, kind of steady population growth. So I like, there's a lot of industries there and a lot of big companies that have had their headquarters there. H&R Block, which is a huge tax company, their main headquarters is there.
Hallmark.
I
worked at American Greetings, so they were our rival.
Yeah.
Yep. I was in Cleveland working at American Greetings as a greeting card writer.
I cannot believe that industry is so huge still. The
greeting
card industry.
Who buys greeting cards anymore?
Yeah.
Sorry, American Greetings people.
Yeah. Well,
I have a lot of friends
Hallmark
there.
owns the Hallmark network, so they're kind of diversified.
Okay. Yeah, they got into entertainment.
Who else? You got Russell Stover, those chocolates that everybody gets for Christmas and nobody eats because they're cheap. They're based out of Kansas City.
They're Kansas City.
Yeah. So got some good companies there. Some like very heavy hitters, and like the H&R Block family is a huge, very wealthy family in Kansas City. So they're actually one of our investors in one of the buildings. So there's kind of a lot of like kind of Titan type companies and families there that sort of run things. So it's good. It's a great market. I like it.
Yeah. Cool. Who's on your team? at this point? So you've got your partner in Kansas City. Who else do you have that you work with?
So we got Alfredo. Yeah, he's my partner. And then my wife is our COO. So she kind of oversees all the employees and all the operations. And then she has 2 employees that report to her that are property managers for the buildings
Okay.
in Kansas City, which they kind of float around to the different buildings. We have a VA who answers the phone. The phone rings nonstop. So he answers the phone and he kind of relays the information to us. And then we have another partner, his name is Jake, and he handles a lot of the leasing and underwriting of new deals. Every time we get a new deal, I just send it to Jake, and then he spits back, the numbers and says, this is what we should offer. And then that's what we do. And he's been awesome with leasing. He and Alfredo tag team with leasing, because leasing office has been the most difficult thing, is finding tenants. So that's a full-time job in and of itself. So they kind of tag team together and they do that. And we've done tremendously in the past few months on our leasing efforts. So
who would you say the next person that you need to add to your team is?
I need to hire somebody that will replace me.
Replace you because you're doing too much work. Are you call yourself the CEO? What's your role?
Yeah, I mean, we have the 2 companies. Rovira Realty is the property manager, and my wife and I own that together. And then RG Capital Partners is the acquisition company.
Acquisitions.
Buildings. So Alfredo and and Jake are the principals of RG Capital, and then my wife and I are the owners of Rovira Realty. I don't like the term CEO because then it implies that I'm the boss. And I don't want to be the boss.
You don't want to be the boss. You got to phase yourself out. You got to replace yourself, right?
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's been tough to find somebody who has kind of the same problem solving mentality that I have to replace my role. So that's kind of, if I were to find somebody to replace that aspect of me, I think it would free me up to do a lot of other amazing things, like finding new deals and growing the business. I kind of get stuck sometimes in the weeds, fixing problems and dealing with things that, I could easily delegate to somebody else that has the same solving nature. So
how do you, there's a problem for you to solve. What does that person look like? Are they like right out of engineering school and that you could lure them to replace you?
Yes, but there's a quality that I have, and maybe it comes from like my immigrant upbringing, which is that I don't have any shame in like sweeping a floor if I need to, or, getting under a cabinet and getting all dirty to see what a problem is. But at the same time, I can deal with spreadsheets and analytical and that sort of stuff.
Right.
I'm completely shameless when it comes to work. And sometimes it's hard to find people that are the same.
Willing to do that.
Exactly. So like, I'll do whatever it takes to fix a problem. And most people won't. They'll sort of give up easily or make excuses. And it's been hard to find somebody who can kind of fill that role. So.
Yeah. Okay. Would you say that that's the biggest challenge you're facing in your business right now?
It's totally in my business and mindset wise as well. It's hard for me to take a vacation because things keep coming at me, even when I'm away. So that's sort of my biggest challenge, my biggest struggle right now. Yeah. Is finding kind of that balance between delegating and what I should be doing myself. So,
do you use coaching or like to solve that problem? Do you have coaching at all?
Yeah, I have 3 different coaches and they're all telling me the same thing, that I need to delegate. And I never listen to them.
Is that right? Oh, they're telling you to delegate. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, coaching has definitely made light of the problem, right? Now the next problem is how to solve the problem, right? So like having, and, therapists and mindset coaches and, business coaches and all these people are there to sort of help you fight problems that you have, right? That make you stuck. One thing is identifying the problem, and then the one thing is then solving the problem.
Right. You need the second part of it.
We're right on the cusp of having identified the problem. Now the next phase is, okay, how do we roll out a solution for all these things? But yeah, totally, for sure.
Yeah, the age-old question. Everybody deals with it. I deal with it as well. Cool. What's a trait that has served you best, both in real estate and in life?
Problem solving, man.
Problem solving.
I'm great at problem solving. For some reason, I'm good at problem solving, and people then bring me more problems because they see how good I am. And I read somewhere, I saw somewhere on like a TV show, somebody say, you should never be too good at something that you don't like to do.
Right.
Sometimes like I'm so tired of like just solving so many problems, and then people just keep bringing me more problems because I'm good at.
And you're the only one that could get it right.
Yeah, or
That
present.
happens in the writing world all the time. Is you create a show or you create something and you're exhausted. Speaking from some personal experience, you're totally exhausted, but you have to be there. It's not going to get done as well as you would want it to be.
Yeah. And sometimes good enough is enough, right? Like, I don't know, in property management, there's a huge margin of error for,
Yeah.
there's so many bad property managers that like, if I hired somebody that was like 70% as good as me, it would be good enough. But it's hard to like let go of that 30%, that isn't me. So, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of mindset issues too. So.
Yeah. What's a daily habit that brings you the most benefit?
That's a great question. Daily habits. I read a lot. My wife says I need a book budget because every time she opens the door, there's a new Amazon book on the floor. Reading is definitely probably a habit I have that has served me very well. It's just what led me down the path of real estate to begin with. So I'll stick with that.
Yeah. That's good. What's one piece of advice you'd give to your younger self or someone starting out?
Buy more deals earlier.
Get started as soon as you can, right?
Yes. I mean, had I bought more properties in 2008, 2009, it would have been amazing. But you get scared because you're just starting out. You don't know what you're doing. The market sucks. There's a lot of negativity. If I had just gotten over that and just gotten over the fears and bought more deals, man, it would have been amazing.
And buy when there's the most fear. Like, maybe the time to be fearful is when everyone else is,
Yeah. And start young because the benefits of real estate are seen in the long run, right? So if the more you wait, the worse it'll be, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. This has been great. You ready for our question round?
Let's do the question round.
Well, the first one is right down your alley. What's the book you've recommended most over the past year?
Okay, over the past year, The Gap and the Gain. That's a good one. Dan
Okay.
Sullivan and Ben Hardy.
Right.
Let's see what else. The
Cool.
past year. No, let's just stick with that one.
That's good. Yeah. Great. Great.
If I look at my library, I have like 20 million books. Nah, forget it. Okay. Gap and the Gain. Move on.
Do you have a favorite quote?
Yes. Don't wait to buy real estate. Buy real estate and wait. I forget who said it. I need to look it up because people keep asking me, but that's a great
That is a great quote. I feel like I've heard that, but not in a long time. Yeah. Let's see. Let me see. An online tool that brings you the most value.
Well, the property management software that we use, Buildium, has been amazing.
Buildium, okay.
So easy. We use Monday.com as a kind of like a project management tool to like assign things. It's good to delegate. It's a good tool to delegate to your employees and people around you and keep each other accountable. So we use those two, and those are big lifesavers in the operation of our business. So.
Oh, awesome. What was your favorite movie when you were 15?
Too many. Star Wars, Back to the Future, Indiana Jones, The Godfather, all the classics.
Yeah, all of them. So you're in multiple decades just there, what you rattled off.
Yeah, man. The older movies obviously are better. Everything nowadays is just a remake. So of those amazing movies. So yeah, movies are better.
Aside from real estate, one thing you could spend all day talking about.
I could probably spend all day talking about movies and TV. I could probably spend all day talking about travel. I love traveling and like different places to go. So yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. If you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
Oh man, that's a heavy one, Mark. For one thing. As being a person who just helped everybody, I mean, we live in this world where nobody serves anyone anymore.
I love it.
Humble servants. So if I can do what I can to help as many people as possible, that, I'll be satisfied.
That is great. What decade created the greatest music?
The 60s and 70s, a British invasion, baby.
Okay.
The Beatles, Zeppelin, all those bands that came from England.
I've asked that a lot, and hardly anybody says that. But
yeah,
that was just so revolutionary. There was no decade where music had such an impact on overall culture than the 60s. It was
Yeah,
like
man.
music was everything in the 60s.
Everything. And there were
Now it's
so
just
many
a
bands.
background. Now it's just background noise.
Yeah, just lounge music and techno and electronic music
Right.
that one guy with a computer created instead of,
Right,
actual
right.
band of people that had to come together with real talent. And,
So good answer. I'm
yeah.
surprised. Maybe people aren't old enough to give that answer. What was your most awkward year?
My freshman year of college, I was 18. I went away to Florida State University. I had never been out of my house. This little Cuban immigrant family boy in northern Florida, where I was the only Hispanic. Huge culture shock, party mentality. I had never drank a beer in my life until I had been to college. Just big culture shock. Super awkward year, freshman year of
So
college.
you were at University of Miami?
I actually ended up transferring out of Florida State
Oh,
after that awkward year. And I
Oh,
went
okay.
back to University of Miami, yeah.
because I was trying to figure out which one. Okay, so Florida State is much more north. That's
Yeah,
not
Florida State is in Tallahassee, which is in the Panhandle.
Oh, sure.
I'm
Yeah.
all the
Okay.
way
I didn't
down
know that.
south Florida.
Somehow I always picture Florida State being somewhere south, but okay. Good enough. Good enough. What movie can you quote the most from?
Back to the Future.
That's
My
such a
friend
great
Henry-
movie.
My friend Henry and I, we play this game. It's a card game. It's a Spanish card game. And it's one of those games where you have a partner and you have to communicate with the partner without the other people.
Uh-huh.
And our entire code is based on Back to the Future. Because
No
he and I have those movies memorized. So we say quote we assign certain things to certain quotes, and we quote the movie in front of the other people, and nobody knows the hell we're talking about. We win every time.
That's cool. I've written a couple screenplays. I got to write the Naked Gun screenplay for Paramount not too long ago. But I always thought, if I was going to do another movie, if I was going to write a movie, I would do I would be copying Back to the Future. I just think a time travel comedy that's what I would want to do.
Those movies are so good, man.
They're
So satisfying.
they're so fun.
The story finishes, everything is closed up like a perfect loop. There's no
but it's not boring. It's crazy. Everything is a little bit mind-boggling, but it all works out.
Robert Zemeckis he says that in his lifetime we will never remake Back to the Future. That's one of the few franchises that has not been remade or new sequel come out. And he is pretty adamant about those movies not being remade.
Really, I did not know that. Oh, cool. Yeah. Is there a high school friend you'd like to say hello to?
Yeah, Henry, the one that I have the Back to the Future code.
Okay.
What's up, Henry? He just got married on Friday. Congratulations.
Oh, no way. Hey, congrats, Henry. And lastly, when are you happiest?
I'm happiest when I'm free.
When you're free?
Loaded question. I'm happiest when I'm free is when I'm out of the house, traveling, seeing new things, experiencing new people. That's when I'm happiest.
Oh, cool. And lastly, how can listeners reach out to you?
Find me on Instagram, the Carlos Rovira. Yes, I had to put the word "the" in front of my name because
there's another Carlos Rovira, right?
There's some other Spaniard named Carlos Rovira that stole my handle. So
you're right. Somebody stole your top Carlos Rovira Google search result.
Yeah, he's the dude. He's in Spain. It's always the same guy. This Carlos Rovira in Spain.
That's great. Well, thanks. A ton of good info and insights, and we tackled some unique asset classes that I don't normally get to hear about. So thanks. It's cool. Awesome.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us for the Wild West Real Estate Show. If you like what we're attempting to do here, please subscribe so we can continue sharing these with you. And if you want to check out our website, it's quantumcapitalinc.com. You'll find podcast episodes as well as multifamily properties we're looking at and how you could potentially participate. Look forward to seeing you guys soon on the Wild West Real Estate Show.